everybody. Welcome to the patio. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Jen. Back to the two of us again today.
Woohoo!
We are looking forward to talking to you. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday weekend.
Yes, happy 4th of July.
Yeah, if you celebrated that or whatever you did, we're happy to be back with you today.
It was a little subdued 4th of July, but we saw a few fireworks around the neighborhood here.
Yeah, we were wondering if more people did their own fireworks this year, or maybe there's a lot of people that just weren't celebrating at all. So we did see a lot of fireworks here, but no just immaculate displays like you would normally see. All of those were canceled, but I still love them anyway.
Yeah. Jen, I went to a store this week and there was a sign on the door that said, "We have a limited amount of coins. Please use correct change." Have you seen any of that?
No, and who still pays with coins anyway? I don't think I have in years.
I know, it said coins, but I wonder if it's dollar bills too. But I did a little research on it, and what they're saying online is because of COVID, they've had to limit production of some of the coins, so the banks are unable to buy in the amount they were in the past. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Did they say which coins?
No, they didn't.
So I wonder if any of my coins are worth something now.
In fact, one article said 1s and 5s as well, you know,
Really?
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but it's another thing on the 2020 list. I mean, I swear, 2020 is going to need like a whole movie or something about it.
No kidding. Well, remember back in the day when we were growing up and there were encyclopedias, not the internet?
Yes,
Man,
yes.
2020 would have been a whole shelf of books
It
just
would,
for the
yeah.
1 year, you know?
A through Z, for sure.
Oh my gosh.
And it seems like you could find something for every letter this year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember going to the ATM back when this whole thing first started and everybody said, draw some cash out. And people were going nuts, like taking out all their money.
Yeah.
And I just wanted a little cash because you never know, is there some truth to what people are saying? And they couldn't give me smaller bills. They only had larger bills. If you wanted 10s or even 20s, you had to go inside.
Wow.
So who knows if this was starting back then?
Well, yeah, and that may be it. I think that also the article said that it's part of, we're not going out as much and spending as much cash, right? We're kind of all spending time at home now more than we have in the past, so we're not spending as much cash. So that amount is out of circulation too, since it's just staying at home with us and we're spending it on Amazon or online, I guess, in most cases.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I definitely pay with my debit card or shop online. Something else very 2020 is Facebook debates, which are so fun.
Yeah, I guess you could call them fun. I don't know.
Yeah, dread them.
Something like that.
Yeah, not a fan at all. But it's somehow people are they're just obsessed with arguing. And I was thinking recently about this class, which I think you may have taken too back in the day at work. It was called 7 Habits.
Mm-hmm.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And most of those classes we had to take at work were just kind of, blow off classes, but this one really was great. This was probably the one that I would say I learned the most from. And in this class, they gave everybody this talking stick. And so when you had the stick, it was your turn to talk. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't have the stick, you were not allowed to talk. And you had to seek first to understand and then to be understood.
That's real important.
Yeah. And I just feel like if everybody had this talking stick, maybe on Facebook, and whoever has the stick is allowed to type their comment.
Right.
Everybody else has to listen to understand, not just to debate or to argue, to really try to see where that other person is coming from. I think that would solve a lot of things. So maybe we need the 7 habits of highly effective Facebooking, right?
Hey, we should come up with that.
We should. Let's make some money off of this. Let's trademark it before this comes out.
Yeah, right? Hold on.
Don't steal our idea. But so recently I saw a Facebook debate and it was over masks, and we won't get into the actual debate of it, but it really was eye-opening because they spent an entire day, they said, coming up with comments to rebut and to really prove their point. And, I think it's important to have an opinion and to explain your side if that's what you want to do, but to waste an entire day's worth of energy to just put paragraph after paragraph of why you're right and why everyone else is wrong, and here's my side again. Let me say it a third time. This is my side. Listen to me. Never once really trying to understand anyone else's point of view is just such wasted energy. But to lighten the subject a little bit, it made me think of back in the 90s when we had some really great, just stupid movies, but that were just so funny, that just really dumb comedy, Adam Sandler comedy. And some friends and I have used this quote so many times over the years, but I'm going to go ahead and play it for you, and then you can determine whether or not it would apply to some Facebook arguments that you've seen.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And just hearing that quote out of context, it sounds really mean, but it's just more funny. It's from the 90s Adam Sandler comedies, Billy Madison, and it just really applies to so many things. I know it definitely applies to things that I've said before too, but I can't read the news story comments on Facebook because I think of that quote every single time.
I know. I've been, in the process of learning and doing things. I've been listening to the Brene Brown podcast. I don't know if you've listened to it, but it is a great podcast. I highly recommend it to everyone. But she said something today as I was listening. I think this one was posted like 5 days ago or something. But she said a mantra that she tells herself when she feels like shame going over her. She feels like, hey, I've gotten that wrong in the past, and you get embarrassed when that happens, right? But she'll just say to herself, I'm here to get it right, not be right. So I think also in that same vein that you're talking about on Facebook, if we would think in that context, I'm here to get it right, not be right, that would probably save half of those Facebook debates.
Yeah, definitely.
And just trying to be right all the time, because that's not going to get you anywhere. So trying to get it right. So change what you've done in the past, be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Forward. Try to listen, try to understand, and then try to get it right and not be right. I remember back in the day, Dr. Phil used to call it right fighting. And if you're trying to fight just to prove your point and prove how right you are, how wrong that actually is, and how detrimental that is to relationships, but instead do it constructively. And so it just sounds like it's all around if we would just listen and really try to understand and then really try to get it right.
To get it right and not be right.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's important. And I love Brene Brown, so check her out.
Yeah, check out that podcast for sure. So my quote here, aside from the funny, satirical quote, is from Glennon Doyle, and it actually goes into a listener question that we had, or a listener email.
Oh, cool.
And so it was kind of a cool email, and it was a fairly long email that I did take the time to respond to, but one little part of it was basically they told us, how much they liked our podcast, but they said, how did we get the courage to do a podcast? She's really wanted to do a podcast for a long time, but she was afraid that people would judge her or listen to just make fun. And I found this quote that I think really applies, and it's by Glennon Doyle, who's another great speaker,
super awesome
author. And she said, and she lives in Florida, which I didn't know until recently, which is so cool.
Yeah, we should be buddies.
Yeah, right. We need to get her. So we're putting it out there right now. She will be on our podcast.
There we go.
Day.
Glennon Doyle, come on.
Let's manifest. So her quote says, I don't think that our life is about convincing people to accept us or love us. I think our life is about only allowing people in who already do. And I think that applies to so many situations, but it definitely applies to the podcast thing. So I say, if you're thinking about doing one, absolutely do it. There's room out there for everybody and overcome that. But you're not trying to convince new people to like you or to love you. It's just really about allowing those people who do, and then finding new people who do or who support you. And if somebody is spending the time to listen to you for 30 minutes or an hour just to make fun of you, that's truly their issue, and you cannot let that bother you. But I think when we're younger, and this was a younger listener, we do spend so much time worried about what other people think. At least some of us do. I know I did. I really cared, and I was always worried about, like, is this person mad at me or whatever? And it's just such wasted energy. Like, it doesn't matter. If they don't like you, if you've done something to offend somebody, absolutely work through that. But if someone doesn't like you just for who you are, or if they think you're just an outsider, an other, or something ridiculous, just let it be. That's their issue. That's not your issue. So just live your life to be the best person you are for you, and do things that make you happy. And if one of your passions is podcasting or anything else, you can't worry about what people think or what they're going to say, because you're always going to have somebody that doesn't like what you're doing.
Yeah, you've got to really work on making yourself happy and doing the things that are going to make you happy. And if that includes doing a podcast, then do it. I mean, for me, this whole podcast, if I can get people to laugh, just one time during the podcast, that makes it all worth it, because we all have enough to be sad about, and I just want to make people happy. I want to give them a laugh or something,
For sure. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Alyssa. I'll give her a little shout out in the podcast. She actually made me laugh really hard because she said that so first of all, she spent a lot of time telling us what she loves about the podcast, and she said that she really feels like she's on the patio with us, and I've spent so much time on patios with her, so that really meant a lot, because that was the whole goal, right, of our podcast. But then she said that she falls asleep to our podcast. And she meant it in a great way, because...
All right, Alyssa! Woo!
Thanks, Alyssa. But that was just so funny, because like she goes back and listens to the rest of the podcast later, but it's just so relaxing, and that's her time of day to just stop and really listen to a podcast. And she gets so lost in the conversation because it feels like she's there that she just can completely relax. But to me, that was the greatest compliment, because like I know her, and she's a lot like me, where your mind kind of goes. It's always talking to you, and if you can just tune out and relax, that's the ultimate compliment.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Whether you're bored to sleep or you're laughing or entertaining, we'll definitely take it.
We'll take it either way.
For listening. And thanks everybody, but do whatever you want to do.
Do what makes you happy. Life's too short not to. Yeah.
And work on your self-confidence too. That's something that took me so many years to have. But just work on that for yourself and tune out the haters, and also don't do it for the praise or for people to love you, because you have to have that within yourself. So if we can leave you with anything on this serious topic, is love yourself, do it for yourself, and forget about everybody else.
How did we get so serious?
I know, right? So today we're going to talk about some work issues, and we'll try to make them funny. Try not to make them so
some
serious.
work things in the past. So
yeah, and we asked a couple people to share with us too. So we have a few good stories, but we would love to hear from you if you have. Share with us your biggest mistakes at work, things that where you should have maybe been fired but weren't, or tell on your friends or coworkers. What have you seen other people do? It's totally anonymous. We'll keep it anonymous. So we had a friend recently have just a pretty annoying situation happen at work.
Yeah.
They are such a good employee, just a good person in general.
Definitely.
So honest, so funny, and just one of the smartest people you'll meet, and dealt with just a stupid issue at work. And so it just really made us think, what mistakes have we made at work? What mistakes have we seen made at work? Mm-hmm. And it's just... everybody makes mistakes in general, but it just seems like at work, it's so much easier to make mistakes, because there's just that level of pressure of you have to perform, or you could get fired, or you're looking for a raise, or you're looking to impress a boss, or you have a difficult boss and they're watching your every move. So it just seems like there's an extra level of pressure.
Yeah.
So even the best people are going to make mistakes. I've seen people from every level make mistakes. And I know you have too.
Oh, yeah. And in general, I mean, we're human. We're going to make mistakes, right? And so there's always going to be that opportunity. And when you're the first point of contact for a customer, I mean, we've both worked in customer service for several years. You're going to hear customers are going to be upset, right? And you're going to be on edge, and you've got to take care of that customer. So mistakes are going to happen.
Absolutely. And it's hard dealing with customers, in whatever level you're on, even when you're really high up.
Yeah.
You still get those customers who are just ruthless.
And you never know what they're going to throw at you.
Yeah. And I know that whenever I go into anything, whether it's, I try not to eat at fast food, but if I am in a fast food type restaurant or a grocery store or anything, I always try to make a little conversation with that person, because especially right now with the craziness going on, people are so mean to those people, and people don't realize, one, that's just their job. It's not like, they're not making policies. If you are checking out with them or talking to them on the phone or seeing them in a retail store, they literally have no authority. They are just a worker there that's doing one of the most important jobs for that company, but they're not a policymaker. They are not, if you're mad about a policy, take it to somebody who can really handle that issue. And if you want to pass it on to that representative, great, but don't yell at them for a policy that you don't like. So I always try to talk to the representatives and just say, oh my gosh, people are crazy, right? And they'll open up to you and tell you about their stories, because working with the public will make you hate the public in general. And I think anybody listening to this who has worked with the public, most people just, you get out of it for a certain time, because it's just too much, especially if you're like me, where you have just a short patience level for people. We talked to a lot of people who had jobs like we used to, those customer customer facing jobs. And that means anybody who's either face to face with a customer or on the phone with a customer, or maybe it's not your job at all to talk to customers, but sometimes you get thrown into a phone call with a customer.
Yeah.
And we asked for some different stories and things where you've made a mistake in the past. And we tried to look at our past as well and see different areas where we've made mistakes. So we have some hopefully funny stories. No confessions here that can get us fired since we no longer have those jobs. So tell us about just a mistake that you might have made in the past.
Yeah, so I haven't been fired, or as one of my mentors used to say, promoted to customer. I liked that. That quote.
One.
Yeah. That's nice. Promoted to customer. I haven't done that yet, but I've really done some things that I probably could have been fired for. And in Arkansas and in Florida, frankly, it's an at-will employer, so they can fire you for anything that they would like to, basically legally. But yeah, so one year, many years ago when I was in college, I worked at a group home for mentally and physically handicapped adults. And one day we were taking the 15-passenger van out, which I was able to drive, right? But many years ago, so that was before backup cameras, okay, guys, on all these 15-passenger vans. So this was a big deal. The 15-passenger vans aren't cheap, right? And I backed it right into a tree.
Oh, no.
Right into a tree.
That's a problem.
It was a problem, so I immediately get out, check everyone. There was only two, I think, clients with me at the time, so neither one of them no one was hurt. I mean, I was going like maybe 15 miles an hour, probably 10 or 5 actually, and so going really slow. But I mean, the tree. So if you've ever seen a 15-passenger van, they have the doors that open in the back, the 2 doors. So I hit right where that crease is, where the 2 doors connect.
Oh my gosh.
So you couldn't see it in the rearview mirror, and that is right where I hit the tree. No excuses though, but yeah, I had to go in, tell the executive director at the time that had happened, and she was very great about it, very encouraging. They got the insurance on it, I guess, and I never had to worry about it again, but I felt horrible and figured, yeah, this is it for me.
But good for you for telling that you did it and not making up a story like, whoa, I just came out and the van was dented.
Oh my
I had
God,
no idea.
it was terrible. It was terrible. And then I felt that it was a terrible experience. I felt so horrible. Because they just had a few of those 15-passenger vans at the time, right? It's a big organization now, but back then they were still kind of growing, and so yeah, it was kind of a big deal. But yeah, funny story now. It wasn't so funny when it happened.
Yeah, my gosh. I don't think I have any backing up into a tree type stories, but I've never been fired either. But my first job out of high school, it might have even been like very end of high school. I think I had just graduated though. And a friend of mine, her dad was a senior VP at the bank there locally. And so my parents thought it'd be a good idea that I tried to get like my first job, Mm-hmm. And so I did. And her dad got me an interview, and somehow I got this bank teller job.
Nice.
And I was still painfully shy. Like I was so like shy. One-on-one or at church, it was great, but like at a big time job, and then especially dealing with money, absolutely hated it.
And the public, right?
Yeah, and the public. My first time. I did not want any part of this, but I did it. So I'm just in training, and it was 3 weeks of training at the time. So I met the coolest lady, and she was probably my age now, but she seems so much older, back then. But she was so awesome, just so funny. And she was just one of those people that you'll later meet at work, that we met later in work, that just doesn't care about anything, but that is also so good at their job. So everything they say is just kind of like against what you're supposed to be like at a bank. But then she was just probably the best teller that ever lived, or at least that's what it seemed like to me, right?
Yeah.
So she was my trainer, and you had to go down this tunnel to get to, so there were these 3 kind of pop-up like drive-through windows, and you actually were in them right next to the car. So you go in this tunnel underneath the actual ground and pop up, and that's where your little station was. So already I'm thinking like, I don't want to be in this dungeon.
Was that like claustrophobic?
It was very
How
small.
big was this tunnel?
The tunnel was, a normal like hallway, but it was in a tunnel. But then where you climb up an actual ladder.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, to get into your window, and the windows were numbered, and she was window 3, because I remember she had to answer the phone, window 3, this is Joyce. That's how I remember that. But it's so small, there was just literally room for the 2 of us, and then our money tray, and you had like the little tubes that come down, the things that they send in, and that was it. It was just so weird. I didn't want to be there. It was just awful. Then you had people driving in, and it's like, it's a lot. I mean, I have so much respect for tellers because it's not just like, and it's probably a lot easier now. This was, a long time ago. But it was just horrible, and I absolutely hated it. But she liked me and I liked her. And so, but the lady who was over the HR training, who I had to spend, by the way, 2 days in learning all about this bank and playing these stupid games and these videos. And I'm just like, I just graduated high school. I don't care about any of this, but sure, I'll play your game. So I did what I could do, but I'm sure my attitude was terrible. I was just, you could probably tell, because I can't hide it, right? So if I don't want to be there, you're going to know. And then I'm at 17, so I really just don't have any like professionalism. And so the little lady who is, I guess she must have been HR or whatever she was, she pulls me aside near the end of my 3-week training, and she had already asked Joyce, because Joyce showed me what she wrote about me. Like, she just gave me this glowing review.
Oh, that was nice.
So sweet. But then this lady, it was like, we can tell that you really don't like working here.
Oh, no!
And I said, I really don't like working here. And she said, it's okay. This is a great learning experience for you. We will make the mutual decision to part ways.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't technically fired, but had I, tried to say I like it here, she probably would have been like, well, guess what? We hate you and you're
Mutual.
leaving. Yeah. So she made it mutual, thankfully. I don't know what I learned other than I was not meant to be a teller.
Yeah.
And I will never be a teller.
That tunnel story, wow.
I know. It was crazy. And the safe was so crazy. You had to walk. So we had to learn all of this in orientation.
Yeah.
And it locks, and I think it maybe only opens like once a day at a certain time, or there was some weird thing where you can't just get into the safe at any time. So like,
it's not like on the movies, right? Okay.
No, it would not open for anybody.
Oh.
So it's only certain hours that it opens, or there was some whole story with that. So yeah, that was definitely not for me, and not at that age, 100%.
Yeah.
So, but that was a mistake that I made to not go in, because every job since, I've always been so professional, and even if I hated it and wanted to quit, they would never know it, right?
Yeah.
But obviously that job, I did not know how to be professional.
I have something a little more recent too. Well, actually, it's not as recent, but it's more recent than the van story. So I was working for call centers, and we were doing a training, and we were working with McKinsey and Company, and we were traveling around to the call centers and learning all this information about how the call center was working and how we can make it more efficient and what we needed to do, and we created this training around it. So that was for about 2 months, and then for the next month, like our first training session that we were supposed to have, right? We've been doing this for a couple months. I was the trainer, so I had all this information in this notebook, and I also had it on my laptop, but mostly on this notebook, how you take notes, etc. So flying to our first destination, I think it was probably Toledo, Ohio, was going to get the first training. I left my notebook in the bathroom at one of the airports along the way. I'm pretty sure it was Atlanta, because we always flew through Atlanta.
Oh, no.
My train the trainer notebook where I had everything I was supposed to do. Thank goodness I didn't have to train until the next day. So I got there that afternoon, was able to get on my laptop and figure out what I was going to say. But who knows? It probably would have been way better had I had my notebook.
No kidding.
But, I don't know that anyone was able to tell. But that was an interesting experience whenever you think you're prepared and, you have all this information, and somehow you leave the notebook in a bathroom. I'm saying it's in a bathroom,
bad.
but it may have just been in, like, on a chair somewhere. But I don't know. I had to set it down somewhere, I guess.
Was there any industry secrets in there?
I'm sure there probably were. Who knows? I'm sure that there were. And I don't know that I ever told anyone that I did that. I just went and kind of, fixed it all, because I figured, someone probably just threw it away.
Yeah, you never know. If it were me, I would have been totally nosy. Maybe not now in the COVID age. I wouldn't be touching a random notebook.
Exactly.
But back then, I would have read through every page. And now with Twitter or Instagram, whatever, you would be...
Oh, it would be terrible,
all
right?
over the place.
Thank God that was like 10, 15 years ago. So, but I could have been fired for that.
Yeah, and you got lucky for sure.
I got lucky. I was able to reinvent the wheel overnight.
Yeah. It's fun thinking back on our mistakes, because I feel like I have so many. And then I have so many coworkers that had some major ones, which were fun. I started working for this hospital. I had to start at the bottom and go move my way up, which that's a whole different podcast, because I would 100% suggest anybody doing that. If you want to do something new, don't be afraid to start at the bottom. But doing this new job, and I had worked my way up at, pretty high up in this other career. And so I felt like, I always was the expert at whatever I was doing.
Right.
You feel so confident because you've been doing it so many years. And then you go into this new arena and you're new and you have no idea what's going on. And, you're so out of place because of that. You're used to being an expert and now you're a peon. Which I love being a peon, by the way. It's great not to have responsibility.
Yeah.
But so this whole new world in hospitals and this whole thing about HIPAA, they take it pretty seriously, right? So guard information at all costs.
Yeah.
And people are so confused, by the way, about HIPAA and what it applies to. Like, people are always spouting off on Facebook, well, that's
geez.
against HIPAA. Well, guess what? It's not. But this was. So people would come in to get their records, right? And so that was my very first intro to medical records and what all that is like. And there's this whole, you have to get their ID, you have to re-verify it, you have to just take a lot of precautions to make sure you have the right person, the right patient, you're giving it to the right person. It can only be accessed for certain reasons and all of this whole thing. So, and then when you print out, it could be hundreds of pages. You're supposed to scan through every single page to make sure it's actually that patient, because there are so many that are printed out. You will have this other person's information in there. So you have to scan through every single page, but then you also have to get it out the door as fast as you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
So it's really a hard balance. So I remember I was going as fast as I could and I did everything I could, and I'm working the front little window and people are coming in, and we had just this wretched woman for our boss who was always screaming at people in front of customers to get it out the door. So I'm working as fast as I can. I thought I was careful. I handed the wrong records to somebody. They had probably at least 100 pages of somebody else's records. And that could have been a fine. I could have not only gotten fired, but probably been in a lot of trouble. But luckily, I knew what I did right away. And I ran out the door, ran down the hall, and said, oh, I think that there was an error on there. I think it just printed out with a bunch of black pages. Let me take those and give you these. But I figured they didn't read them. They didn't get to see them. So we got that handled. And after that, I was so careful because I think that was my second week on the job.
I mean, we all make mistakes, and they could be devastating. And then you have to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps or do whatever and figure it out,
Because there's just such a difference between an accidental mistake and then an intentional shadiness.
Fraud
oh
stuff.
My gosh.
I mean, I've seen fraud stuff too. I'm sure that you have, especially in the sales world.
A lot.
That happens quite a bit. So, I think, gosh, there was one time many years ago, I'm dating myself, but prepaid phones were kind of just new and exciting, and somehow we had a bunch of old phones that we needed the numbers for our quarterly reporting. So they said activate these prepaid phones. So literally we would get paid for new activations, which you got the bonus structure. That was back when I was in retail, so many, many, many years ago. But we would stay up at night in the retail store activating these prepaid phones. Now, looking back on it in my history and realizing what we were probably actually doing could have been fraudulent to pad the numbers, right? It didn't seem that way at the time, but it could have been.
And that was at the direction of a boss, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So much shadiness like that. We had someone in our market in Springfield who would, back when they had prepaid phones, you would take a cash payment for it.
Yes.
But they also had the system where you could make an adjustment or a credit.
Is it called Smart something?
I think Smart Pay. And so you would come in and you say, I want to put $10 on my prepaid account. Well, this person would pocket the $10 cash.
Yes.
And then put a credit on the account in the system.
Yep.
And I don't know how many thousands of dollars they made, but I remember the person, and they worked in the call center with me and then went to this little Walmart kiosk, and they seemed like a pretty ethical, good person. Put someone in the retail store with some money.
Stuff happens in those retail stores. I mean, it's something, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, the stories. We need to have a friend of mine on the podcast who was in retail with me, and she would have a lot of stories. We had these two guys, I won't name them, but they would go across the street to, I think it was a Come and Go in Springfield, the gas station.
Oh, yeah.
And they would get these cherry limeades and bring them back. and then they would take a bottle of vodka and pour it in the cherry limeade and drink it while they were
drink
working.
it while they were oh my gosh!
And I would get
they should have
so
gotten
mad.
fired for that.
Yeah, they should have. But the way that it is in retail, if you tattle on somebody, you're the one who gets fired.
Yeah.
So I just had like this little mental book of everything going on because I was just at that point just so good, like so ethical. I wouldn't do any of the shadiness that they wanted because I wanted to prove that you didn't have to. And there were so many things. This one poor customer came in. She was from, I think, Virginia Beach. And she was living in Springfield, but her boyfriend was there. He was in the military, and they had been sending pictures apparently back and forth to each other. This was back on smartphones. Well, when you got another phone because your phone broke, you would hook it up to the computer.
Before the cloud.
Yeah, there was no cloud. You'd hook it up to the computer, and then it would transfer all the information,
all your
from
data, all your
this
information,
phone, but pictures too.
Yeah.
Well, one of the shady little sales boys saw these pictures of her that were not so good and put them onto their personal computer.
Oh, they should have been fired for sure.
One of them was.
Okay.
So that was one thing where that was too much. And my coworker, who I want to have on here because she still kind of works there, totally different company now, but same job. She told on them. And when I found out, like I was ready to back them up, but luckily it didn't come to that. So I didn't have to deal with HR. But she said it was a crazy situation with HR. They found a lot of proof and there was a lot of bad that happened in that store. Lots of fraud.
Yeah,
I mean, goes too far.
It does. There's always room for error, but then sometimes it's more than error, right? It's malicious intent.
In the call center there in Springfield, there was these two guys, and they would answer the phone. First of all, they would try to say how many times that they could, or see how many times they could say meow in the call without the customer knowing it, and they got really good at it.
Oh my god.
But it used to make me so mad because here I was trying so good to get good scores and do as good as I could, and these little jerks would do that. But then they started saying F you for calling instead of thank you for calling. But if you say the true F word very fast, it sounds like thank. And they got away with that too.
Wow.
Yeah, so people do so many bad things, and then you have people who make an honest mistake.
And they're trying to do the right thing.
And they own up to it.
They're loyal, and they're trying to do the
trouble.
right thing. And it's a small mistake, and then they're let go. Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah, it's not. But you know what? Karma.
It's going to come back.
Ya.
That's right.
Good and bad, I believe that.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. I'm with you on that.
Man, there are so many more stories we could probably share. And there are definitely times we should have been fired.
I should have been fired, I know, a few times.
I think I gave out like the wrong balance to customers back when they were the cell phone company. And then I worked at another bank. So this was after that, tragic situation of the teller. Actually, one of Brad Pitt's relatives was my customer back in those days, and people would call in and they would want to know. There was this NSF list, like non-sufficient funds list.
Oh, yeah.
So if your account was in the negative, but you had a check coming in, we could put it on this list to clear it. So basically, I don't know. I mean, it sounded shady at the time, and it was shady now. But there were so many businesses in town that were on that list who were just, and I think we're seeing that now with COVID, when these businesses just fold within a month.
Yeah.
They're always operating on a negative cash flow. I don't know how they do it.
Just trying to keep their head above water.
Yeah, but we gave out wrong information all the time, not on purpose, but it's just like, you're young, you're not trained, your bosses don't do anything, they don't give you the information you need. They put these people who are 18 years old on the phones answering this, ridiculous stuff without training.
And then if you do good at that, you get promoted to be the supervisor, where you might not be supervisor material, you're just good at taking calls, so that's the way that works. And then you're good at, if you're good at a supervisor, you become a manager, whatever. But yeah, it's something. I should have been fired a million times, I think.
Yeah. I'm thinking of more stories now that we're talking. I remember back when long distance, I would travel. So I would go to California, and my best friend worked there at the time, the one who did the machines for the 4th of July that we talked about.
Yeah.
I would call in for long distance calls. So I'd call the 800 number to the bank, and she would answer, and then she would transfer me locally to like my parents so I could talk to them for free. Stuff like that. Technically, she should have been fired for that.
And the bank couldn't figure that out, probably,
There was literally 8 people in a call center.
Wow. I can't even imagine.
Oh, somebody shared. So that was a story. Somebody shared that there were 8 people in their little call center, too. So a different type of call center, though. And so there's this button that you push called Not Ready. And it's sometimes called different things in different places. But it basically, if that button is pushed, a call cannot come to your phone.
Right.
But if there's only 8 of you working and you all push that button, no calls can come into the whole call center. And if your boss is not there, then it's just going to call in and they're just going to think you're super busy. And so no calls come through. And
my gosh.
And I can totally relate because I am 100% sure we did that too at some point.
Yeah, the not ready button. I think everyone's familiar with that, right?
Yeah,
I was getting coaching. I was doing follow-up on the previous
and
call.
ours would work. So like if you and I were both on the phones and our phones were both like ready to take a call and the call would come to mine, if I pushed that not ready, it would shoot it over to you. So like you could keep pushing it and you wouldn't get a call for hours. I'm sure people did that all the time.
I'm sure we figured that out. Our leadership probably figured that out at some point, but
yeah, well, the Altel systems, they could tell, like because you had to have a unique code.
Yeah.
But a lot of those older systems, you would just put any 4 digits, log into your codes. They had no idea who was doing what. Fun times.
So funny.
Yeah.
Fun times.
So share us your shady stories, your mistakes, your coworkers' mistakes. We'd love to hear them.
I think the moral of the story is we all make mistakes, and we're all just trying to get it right, not be right.
Exactly. Do your best.
Do your best. Be kind.
Don't care what other people say.
Wash your hands. Wear a mask.
If you want to. Do what you feel is right for you and your family.
That's right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week.
We'll see you next week, and don't forget to review us on the old iTunes
and subscribe or whatever to whatever. Whatever you do. I'm not really sure, but give it a shot.
Do you?